The morning was quiet, but the silence didn't soothe him. He wiped at the coffee stain on his shirt with a crumpled napkin from the glove box. It only smeared. He glanced in the rearview mirror, tightening his tie like it mattered. It didn't. Not to them. The line of SUVs moved slowly along the school curb. Shiny, polished, new. His dented Toyota coughed forward, the engine grumbling under its breath like it was embarrassed to be seen here. His daughter, Emma, sat in the back seat with her backpack hugged to her chest. Her hair was in 2 crooked braids he'd done in the dark. She didn't complain. She never did. They reached the drop-off. The staff member opened the back door with a cheerful "Good morning, sweetheart," but paused slightly when she saw the father behind the wheel. Emma climbed out quietly. A boy in a varsity jacket snorted. Another parent leaned into a friend and whispered something behind a manicured hand. Laughter followed, tight, knowing. He didn't look at them. He never did. He focused on Emma. "You got your snack?" "Lunchbox." She nodded, but didn't move away. Instead, she walked around the car to his window. Eyes cast down. Her voice was low, fragile. "They're laughing again," she said, barely above a whisper. His hand gripped the wheel. Not in anger, in helplessness. He forced a smile. "You shine brighter than they ever will." She didn't smile back, just turned and walked through the school gates. He watched until the door closed behind her, and then he sat there a second too long, letting the engine idle, like maybe if he didn't move, the day wouldn't have to begin. But it had, and it already hurt. The school's multi-purpose room buzzed with polite chatter and the soft clinking of coffee cups. Folding chairs had been arranged in neat rows, though half were already claimed with handbags and yoga mats. A silent language for reserved. He stepped inside, awkwardly adjusting the collar of the same shirt from earlier, now drier, but still stained. A woman in pearls looked up, blinked once, then lowered her eyes to her clipboard. Another dad with slicked back hair glanced his way, offered a nod to "brief to be real," then leaned into a group of other men in matching golf jackets. Their laughter grew louder. He scanned for an empty chair, found one in the back corner. A woman shifted her handbag slightly closer to the chair beside her. A subtle block. He passed by without a word. A slide flickered onto the screen at the front. "Welcome to the PTA fundraising committee." He sat alone. A woman near the front whispered something to the pearl-wearing mom. They glanced back at him in unison, their smiles thin and brittle. He reached into his folder, pulling out a proposal he'd typed at 3 a.m., using free templates online. He double-checked the grammar, triple-checked the budget. The microphone squealed as Principal Haley stepped forward. She wore a slate-gray blazer and a tired smile, her eyes scanning the room, pausing just for a breath when they landed on him. "Well," she began, "before we start, I want to make sure everyone here is." She looked directly at him. Sure, they're in the right room. A few chuckles bubbled up, quiet, but not quite enough. He nodded once, lips pressed into a line, and opened his folder without looking up. He wasn't leaving, but he wasn't welcome. He didn't go back to work. Not right away. Instead, he parked at the far edge of the school lot near the cracked fence, where the trees cast long shadows and no one else ever bothered to stop. His truck door creaked when it opened. The wind carried the smell of fresh-cut grass and cafeteria fries. Kids' voices echoed faintly from the playground beyond the building. He sat in the driver's seat and opened his lunch bag. A plain turkey sandwich, apple slices browning at the edges, a folded napkin, and under it, a crumpled, familiar envelope. The corners were soft with wear, the paper yellowing slightly. His name wasn't on it. There was no stamp, just a name, in his own handwriting. Written 12 months ago, Lena. He didn't open it. Didn't need to. He knew every word by heart. He placed it on the dash like he always did, where the sun could warm it, where it almost felt like a presence, like she might read it through the glass. He took a bite of the sandwich, chewing slowly, staring at the parents walking back to their glossy cars. Some of them waved at each other. Some didn't see him at all. One dad opened his trunk. Inside were rows of boxed cupcakes for the PTA bake sale. He looked at his own empty passenger seat, just crumbs on the vinyl. His fingers hovered over the letter again. Then he looked at the school windows, where somewhere inside, Emma was pretending not to notice the world. He tucked the letter back into the glove box. It still wasn't time, but soon. Maybe the kitchen smelled like pencil shavings and overcooked spaghetti. Emma sat cross-legged at the table, tongue peeking from the corner of her mouth as she colored fiercely. Crayon wrappers littered the surface like confetti. He leaned against the counter, rinsing dishes with one hand, watching her through steam and fluorescent light. "You're quiet tonight," he said gently. She didn't look up. "I'm making something." He dried his hands and walked over, crouching beside her. It was a drawing, thick strokes of red and blue. A tall man with a messy beard and cape stood next to a girl with pigtails. Behind them, a building labeled school leaned sideways, cartoon-like. Above them, the sun wore sunglasses. He smiled. "Who's that?" "Superman." She shook her head. "That's you," his throat caught. She pointed. "See, you're holding my hand. And your cape is made of tools. Like your wrench and the screwdriver in the drawer." He studied it closer. "Why does it say Janitor Dad on my shirt?" Emma hesitated. "Is that what you think I am?" She hesitated, then spoke softly. "No, but Jacob said that's what you are, because of your truck. And your clothes." The silence stretched between them. He reached for a blue crayon and added a small piano in the corner of the picture. "What's that?" she asked. "Something you'll see soon," he said with a faint smile. But for now, he tapped the drawing. "This is the best picture of me I've ever seen." Her eyes brightened, even as her shoulders stayed small. Outside, the wind howled through the broken screen door. Inside, he taped the picture to the fridge with a magnet shaped like a star. The hallway lights flickered as the sun slipped behind the trees. Outside, he rushed through the front entrance, breath short, keys still swinging in his hand. His boots echoed on the polished floor as he turned the corner into the main corridor. Lined with children's artwork and a row of closed classroom doors, only one child sat alone on the bench by the office. Emma. Her legs dangled, not quite reaching the ground. Her backpack sat unopened beside her, its zipper halfway down like it had tried to leave without her. She didn't look up when he approached. "I'm sorry," he said, crouching low. "There was traffic." "And it's okay," she said softly, still not meeting his eyes. Behind them, the front office door creaked open. A staff member peered out, then silently walked away, offering nothing more than a glance. He reached out, brushing her hair back from her forehead. "Did anyone sit with you?" She shook her head, his jaw clenched. "They should have called me." "They did," she whispered. He looked down, her voice wavered. "Can we go to a different school?" That question knocked the wind out of him harder than any insult. He swallowed hard. "Why? Because here feels like I don't belong, and like you don't either." His hand dropped from her shoulder. For a second, he said nothing. Then he picked up her backpack and offered his hand. "Come on," he said gently. "You belong wherever you walk. And if they don't see that..." He didn't finish the sentence. She took his hand, but didn't smile. Outside, the lot was almost empty, just their truck waiting. Alone under a flickering street lamp, and for the first time, the silence between them felt like a wall neither wanted to touch. The following morning, the lot was crowded again. Minivans, Teslas, the golden SUV that gleamed like pride on wheels. He pulled into the last spot near the dumpsters, the truck groaning as it rolled to a stop. The windshield wipers squeaked once, pointlessly brushing away air. Emma sighed. "Can I just go in fast today?" He turned to her, nodding. "Yeah, of course." She reached for the door, hesitating just before stepping out. "I love you," he said. She gave a faint smile. "I know." Then she disappeared into the crowd. He leaned back, resting his head against the seat. Just for a moment, a knock startled him. He looked out his window. A tall man in aviator sunglasses grinned down at him. Pressed blazer, shiny watch, gelled hair. "Morning," the man said, voice slick. He rolled down the window halfway. "Hey, didn't mean to wake you." The man glanced at the truck, smirked. "Guess some of us don't have time for coffee stops before drop-off, huh?" The jab was casual, coated in fake friendliness. He smiled politely. "I don't need coffee to be present." The man chuckled. Right? Some of us have real jobs to get to." There it was. The line wasn't meant to be personal, but it landed like a slap anyway. He didn't rise to it, didn't flinch. He just gave a nod and drove off. But inside, something bent, not broken, not shattered, just bent. The kind of bend comes before music changes. Key, the fluorescent lights above the main. Office hummed like a restless thought. He sat in the hard plastic chair across from Principal Haley's desk, back straight, hands folded, the way you do when you're not sure if you're in trouble or about to be thanked. She shuffled a few papers, eyes scanning a document she clearly wasn't reading. Finally, she spoke. "Mr. Carson." "Eli," he said quietly. She looked up. Her eyes were tired, but not unkind. "Eli." A beat passed between them. "I've been thinking about the upcoming talent night," she continued, choosing her words like she was stepping through fog. "And I'd like to ask a favor." His brow lifted slightly. "From me?" Her lips twitched into a smile, brief and tight. "Yes, I think it would mean a lot to the students, and maybe more to the parents if someone different, someone with heart, spoke before the event begins." He blinked, unsure. "Spoke about what?" She hesitated. "About showing up, about being seen, about what it means to support a child in ways that don't always show on paper." His throat dried. He didn't respond right away. She leaned forward slightly. "You don't have to say yes now. Just think about it." He nodded slowly. "You think I'm the right person for that?" Her voice dropped. "I think you might be the only one who could say it and mean it." He sat back, exhaling softly. "I'll think about it." She smiled again, but this time there was something behind it, something unspoken. "Thank you." As he stepped out into the hallway, his fingers brushed against the envelope in his pocket, the one he hadn't opened in months. Maybe the words were already written. The night was quiet. Too quiet for a house that once held music. Eli sat at the kitchen table, the same table where Emma once learned to count by sorting raisins. A single lamp lit the space, casting soft shadows that seemed to shift with memory. He unfolded the letter slowly. Like touching something sacred, the paper had creases like fault lines and faint smudges where ink met old tears. At the top, in blocky print. "To Lena." He didn't read it again. He didn't need to. He could hear it. "You'd hate how quiet it is now. I try to hum when I wash dishes. I try to sing bedtime songs, even though she always ends up comforting me instead. I still make your spaghetti, though it never tastes right without your laugh in the room." He stared at the words. "I don't know if I'm doing any of this right, but I show up. Every morning, I try again. I just wish you could have seen how brave she's become, how much she's like you, stubborn and bright, and already far too wise for her age." The final line was shaky, written long after the rest. "I hope she never sees me the way the world does." He folded the letter again, slower this time, as if sealing it meant letting go then. Quietly, he walked to Emma's backpack, unzipped the front pocket, and slid it inside, tucked between her math notebook and a crayon-streaked folder. Not for her to find now, but for when the time was right. He zipped it closed and stood there a moment longer, hands and fists at his sides, then turned off the light and walked into the dark. The folding chairs squeaked as people shifted in them, the sound of discomfort dressed up in cardigans and committee badges. Eli sat near the end of the U-shaped table setup, his proposal printed on clean white paper, held in hands that couldn't keep still. PTA members sat with crossed legs and tighter smiles, eyes flicking between their lattes and their agendas. Principal Haley cleared her throat. "Next item, community fundraiser. Mr. Carson has a proposal." He stood, heart loud in his ears. "I was thinking something simple," he began. "A weekend music night. Local food trucks, parents and kids performing together, not for show, but for connection. Cheap tickets, all proceeds to the school library." Some heads turned. Some didn't. "I can handle the stage setup," he added, "and I know a few musicians willing to help out." A silence followed, thick and polite. Then a PTA mom with a silk scarf spoke, her tone syrupy. "It's a charming idea, Mr. Carson, but I think we'd all prefer something more elegant this year." Murmurs of agreement. Someone suggested a country club gala instead. "Library needs books," he said softly, "not champagne." Another dad chuckled under his breath. "And who's going to sing you?" Eli looked down at his hands, calloused. Steady. Principal Haley looked like she wanted to speak, but didn't. The vote came quickly. His idea rejected unanimously. He gathered his papers without a word. Later, in the hallway, Emma met him with hopeful eyes. "How'd it go?" she asked. He knelt beside her, kissed her forehead. "We'll find another way," he whispered, and meant it. because somewhere between rejection and resolve, music still lived in him. The basement smelled like forgotten time dust, damp concrete, and cardboard boxes that hadn't been opened since Lena died. Eli pushed aside a stack of old winter coats. Flashlight cutting a pale line through the dim. Emma followed closely behind, holding her breath like she was entering a cave full of ghosts. "What are we looking for again?" she whispered. "You'll see," he said, in the far corner, under a faded tarp. Sat something long and heavy, almost out of place in a room, meant for clutter and silence. He pulled the tarp back. A piano, .odhowa showed. Upright, the wood worn at the corners, but still beautiful. Its keys yellowed like old teeth, some chipped, some silent. Emma stepped forward slowly, reverently. "Did this belong to Mom?" He nodded. "She used to play every Sunday morning," he said. "Always before breakfast. Used to drive me nuts. Now I'd give anything to hear it again." Emma brushed a key. It made a low, tired sound. "Does it still work?" He sat down on the bench, placed his fingers gently on the keys. At first, nothing. Then, a soft, broken chord. This time, a melody crept out, slow, imperfect, but real. Emma sat beside him, legs swinging off the edge. "She was better than me," he murmured. "But you still remember." He nodded. "My hands do." They sat there, surrounded by shadows and echoes. As his fingers danced quietly across memory, "We could play something together." His breath caught. "Maybe," he said. Then softer, as he looked at the cracked keys and felt something stir in his chest. "Maybe it's time." The next night, the living room felt different. Not cleaner, not brighter. Just full. Eli had moved the piano upstairs, grunting through each step, refusing Emma's offers to help. Now it stood against the far wall near the window. Catching moonlight like it was waiting for something sacred, he sat on the creaky bench in his usual hoodie, palms flat on the keys. Emma curled up on the couch across from him, legs tucked under a blanket, eyes wide, ready. He asked, voice soft. She nodded. He began with a single note, middle C, drawn out and deliberate. Then another, then more, each one building, weaving into something old and familiar. A lullaby, not hers, Lena's, the one she used to hum when Emma was still too small to speak. His fingers moved with grace he hadn't felt in years, not perfect, but honest. The melody didn't demand applause, only silence, reverence. Emma's chest rose slowly, her eyes blinking less. The room listened when the song ended. No one clapped, no one needed to. It wasn't for show, it was for show, it was for her, and for the woman who taught him how to love quietly, even through loss. He looked up, expecting a nod or a smile, but Emma was already holding her phone. "Recording, Em?" he said gently. "Why?" She lowered it. "I just wanted to remember it." He stared at her for a beat, then at the phone. "Don't post it." "I won't," she promised. But something had been lit, not just in her eyes, in the air. In him, he stood, stretched, and walked past her by behind him. She pressed play, and the room filled with music again. This time, from him, it started with a buzz. Then another. Eli stood in the garage, covered in dust and sweat, replacing a light bulb that refused to stay lit. His phone buzzed again on the workbench. He wiped his hands on his jeans and checked the screen, 0.17 notifications. Messages from unknown numbers. A tag he didn't recognize. A video. His heart dropped. He tapped it. There he was, hoodie wrinkled, eyes closed, fingers dancing across the keys. The sound was raw, unfiltered, slightly out of tune, and beautiful and public. The title, "My Dad, I Bet You Didn't Know." Already 1,200 views, already 24 comments, already a handful of laughing emojis from accounts with perfectly staged profile pictures. He turned toward the house. Emma sat at the dining table, earbuds in, coloring with focus. Her phone glowed beside her. He opened the door. She looked up immediately, like she knew. "Emma," he said, calm but firm. She pulled out one earbud. "I didn't mean, why did you post it?" Her voice shrank. I wanted them to know who you really are." "I'm not a performer," he said. "This wasn't supposed to be public." Tears threatened, but she blinked them back. "They see everything else about you wrong." He sighed, his hands falling to his sides. Take it down, he said softly. She nodded, but later, alone. He checked again. The views had doubled, and someone had commented, "I don't know who this man is." But I felt that. He stared at the screen. Felt pride, felt panic, mostly. He felt exposed, and that terrified him. By Monday morning, the video had become hallway currency. Teachers whispered. Students whispered louder. Even the janitor gave Eli a thumbs up in the parking lot, the first acknowledgement in weeks. But the kindness didn't reach everyone. He walked through the school lobby holding Emma's lunch. Heading to the front office, she'd forgotten it again. On purpose, he suspected. Just to see him mid-day dot near the PTA bulletin board. A circle of sharply dressed mothers leaned in close, sharing phone screens and whispers laced with sugar and venom. One woman said, voice sticky, "He thinks he's some kind of concert pianist." Another giggled, "I just thought he was fixing broken trucks. Turns out, he's playing Mozart in his hoodie." A third added, "Maybe we should let him play at the next fundraiser. For tips." Laughter, soft, polite, the kind that slices without raising its voice. Eli stopped, just out of sight. Every word sharp in his chest. He didn't move, he didn't breathe, and then another voice broke through. Small, trembling. "Why are you talking about my dad like that?" She stood there lunchless, clutching her backpack straps like a shield. The women turned, startled. Their faces shifted, surprise, then guilt, then defensiveness. "Oh, honey," one said too sweetly. "We were just teasing. Your dad's? Very talented." Emma's eyes didn't blink. "He plays for my mom." The woman blinked. "Excuse me, she's dead," Emma said, "but he still plays." "For her, not for you." She turned and walked toward her father. Burying her face in his side, he placed the lunchbox gently in her hands and wrapped his arms around her like armor. The alarm shrieked through the halls, high-pitched, relentless. Emma's class filed out onto the blacktop. Kids laughing, shouting, half-treating it like recess. Teachers held clipboards, calling names with clipped urgency. Eli was already there. He had stopped by to drop off a permission, slip Emma had forgotten. The bell rang just as he stepped inside the main corridor. He followed the flow of students outside, unsure whether to stay or wait by the truck. Outside, a woman in a PTA badge squinted at him. "You, sir, can you grab the cones from the equipment shed?" She barked, pointing behind the gym. "We need them for perimeter." He blinked. "Sorry." She motioned again, flustered. "The cones, please." He hesitated, then nodded. No time to argue. He walked toward the shed. From across the lot, Emma saw him. She was lined up with her class, eyes scanning the crowd, until she spotted her dad carrying neon cones like a hired hand. Behind her, two boys whispered, "Isn't that your janitor?" Emma's face flushed. She turned away. Didn't answer, didn't correct them. Eli set the cones down near a teacher and turned. Looking across the schoolyard, his eyes met Emma's. Only for a second, she quickly looked down. He froze, not at her reaction, but at how familiar the feeling was to show up to be mistaken, to be invisible in the wrong ways, and far too visible in others. The bell rang again, signaling the all-clear. Kids cheered and raced back inside. Emma didn't. She walked slower than the rest, as if her steps carried a weight. She wasn't old enough to name, and Eli stood there. Cones at his feet, silence in his chest. The meeting room felt colder than usual. Eli sat near the back, a stack of fundraising proposals in his lap, none of which were his. Around him, the usual PTA suspects chatted about caterers and sponsorships. The words gala and ambience tossed like confetti. Principal Haley stood at the front, her voice tired. "Before we close, I'd like to open the floor." Silence until Eli stood. Chairs shifted. Eyebrows rose. He didn't hold a paper. Didn't clear his throat. Just looked out at them, his eyes quiet and steady. "I've been in this room 3 times now," he said. Once to suggest an idea, once to be voted down, and once to be laughed at. A few people shifted uncomfortably. "I'm not here to impress anyone. I don't drive a Lexus. I don't wear the right shoes. I don't always know the protocol." His voice didn't shake. It cut softly, like piano notes in a silent room. "But every morning, I wake up before the sun. I pack a lunch I hope she won't hate. I braid her hair badly. I teach her how to be kind when the world isn't. I show up," he paused, "and I play a piano that reminds me of my wife, so my daughter can feel like her mother is still in the room." No one spoke. I'm not a gala guy. I'm just a dad. He sat down. For a moment, nothing moved. Then one mom clapped. Just one. The rest sat frozen. Principal Haley looked down at her papers. Lips pressed tight. Outside, the wind shook the window. Inside, something had shifted. Not loud, not dramatic, but undeniable. The office was quieter after hours. No announcements, no echo of rushed footsteps. Just the slow tick of a wall clock, and the hum of a coffee machine long since turned off. Eli sat across from Principal Haley once more. This time, she wasn't behind her desk. She'd pulled a chair beside him, like they were equals, like it mattered. She held a worn photo in her hand. A man with deep eyes and a crooked smile stared back from it. "My father," she said quietly. "He used to fix vending machines." Eli looked at her, eyebrows gently raised. He wore the same oil-stained jeans to my recitals that he wore to work, sat in the back row, never clapped louder than once. I used to pretend not to see him. Her voice cracked, but he was always there, always. She handed him the photo. "He passed before I got this job. Never saw this office. But I'd like to think he'd be proud of what I built, because he built me." Eli studied the man's face. Familiar somehow. Strong but tired. Kind but quiet. "I've read the letter, Eli," she said, softer now. His breath caught. "I never gave it to you." She nodded. "Emma did. Slipped it into her reading folder. Maybe by accident. Maybe not." He turned away slightly, shame flickering in his eyes. "It's beautiful," she added. "Raw, honest, and it doesn't belong in a drawer." She stood, walking back to her desk, her voice low but clear. "Maybe it needs to be read." He didn't answer .couldn, single quotes, but something inside him stirred, not resistance, but release. Like a note long held. Finally allowed to fade, the house creaked with wind that night. A slow moan through the gaps in the windows, like the house itself was tired of holding pain. Eli moved quietly down the hallway, mug in hand. Steam curling into the dim light. Emma's door was cracked open. She wasn't asleep. She sat on the floor beside her bed, knees to her chest, her back to the door. He knocked gently. No answer. "Can I come in?" he asked. She didn't speak, but her head nodded barely. He sat beside her, not saying anything at first, just letting silence carry weight it didn't have to explain. "I can't do it anymore," she finally whispered. His brow furrowed. "School." She nodded. "It's not just the kids. It's everything. The stares, the whispers. The looks they give you?" She turned her head toward him, her face blotchy, eyes red. "I hate how they make you small." His throat closed for a moment. "You don't have to carry that." "But I do," she snapped, then instantly softened. "Because you never get mad. You never say anything. You just let them do it." He looked down at his hands. Sometimes, surviving looks a lot like silence. She wiped her face with her sleeve. "Can't we go somewhere else? Some other school?" He placed a hand on her shoulder. "I don't want to run," he said. "I want you to walk into that school like you belong, because you do. And if we can get through one more day," he paused, "one more." She didn't nod, didn't smile, but she leaned into his side, head resting gently against him, and in that small surrender, there was trust. Fragile but still alive. The flyer fluttered on the hallway bulletin board, half torn, surrounded by outdated lunch menus and faded announcements. "Talent night this Friday. Synops in the office. All students welcome." Emma stared at it like it was a dare. Behind her, lockers clanged. Kids moved in clusters. No one noticed her standing still, except Eli, leaning against the opposite wall with a bag of groceries in hand. Watching without pushing, she turned to him. "Do you think I should?" He shrugged gently. "Do you want to?" "I don't want them to laugh." He stepped forward, his voice low and steady. "Then don't give them a reason to forget you." Her eyes searched his. "I was thinking of singing," she said. "Something Mom used to sing, that lullaby." His breath caught just briefly. "You remember it?" "I remember how she looked at you when you played it." Eli exhaled through his nose, nodding once. She turned back to the flyer. "Do you think they'll let me perform?" Anonymously, he smiled. Only if you've got a mysterious name. She grinned for the first time in days. The shadow singer? Terrifying, he said. She walked into the office and picked up the pen, her fingers trembling slightly. On the line beneath performer name, she didn't write her real one, just 2 words, with Dad. She stepped back out and looked up at him. You'll play with me, right? Eli didn't speak. He just nodded slow, certain dot. And for the first time, the hallway felt like a stage, not for show, but for something real, something ready. The living room had never felt this sacred. The piano sat by the window now, bathed in the soft orange of a late afternoon sun. Outside, leaves danced in slow spirals. Inside, Emma stood in socks, holding a crumpled piece of notebook paper with lyrics she'd written herself. Eli adjusted the piano bench, cracking his knuckles with a nervous chuckle. It's been years since I played for anyone but shadows. Emma smiled. Then I guess you're ready for the light. She sat beside him, close enough that their shoulders touched. He nodded once. She nodded back, and he began. The notes came slowly at first, hesitant but familiar, like waking a memory instead of a melody. Emma took a deep breath and let the first line of the lullaby slip from her lips. It wasn't perfect, but it was honest. Her voice trembled, then steadied. Each note reached for something long gone, and something still living. As she sang, Eli's eyes watered. Not from grief, but from recognition. This was Lena's voice, reborn in softer tones. By the end, they were both silent. Emma whispered, she would have loved this. He turned to her. She does. Emma smiled, small and full. They didn't speak after that. Just started again, and again, until the sun dipped below the trees, and their shadows stretched long across the floor. There was no applause, no crowd, only two people rebuilding something the world tried to take note by note, word by word. By Wednesday, the school hallways hummed with more than just fluorescent lights. It was whispers now passed between lockers, bathroom stalls, and cafeteria tables. The performance list had been posted outside the main office that morning. Most names were predictable. Ethan are playing violin, Chloe M doing a TikTok dance, Marcus S doing magic. But one line caught attention. With Dad's special performance, that was all it said. No grade, no first name, no clue. No, it's gotta be someone from drama club. What if it's like a famous dad? Emma heard it all. She kept her head down, moving through the noise like a shadow, backpack tight against her spine. Every time she passed a group of students talking, her stomach tightened, not in fear, but anticipation. In the teacher's lounge, the buzz had caught fire too. One of the moms from the PTA leaned into Principal Haley's office, sipping coffee with a smirk. So, any hints? This with Dad? Acts someone's trying a bit hard to be mysterious, huh? Principal Haley didn't look up from her computer. You'll just have to wait, like everyone else. The woman laughed. Well, let's just hope it's not that piano, Dad. Haley paused. Her voice was calm. Maybe that's exactly who it needs to be. Meanwhile, in the music room, Eli tuned the old-school piano after hours, fingers moving like they'd never left it. He didn't need the spotlight, but this time, it wasn't about him. It was about her, and whatever name they called out Friday night, he'd be ready, even if they never knew it was them. Thursday night came heavy. Emma sat on her bed, back, hunched eyes glued to the same lyric sheet she'd rehearsed all week. It was crinkled now, folded, refolded, like it had absorbed every doubt and second guess in her chest. Eli stood in the doorway, arms crossed, watching her without words. She hadn't touched dinner. He walked in slowly and sat beside her. The silence between them was different tonight. Not peaceful, not tense, just afraid. I can't do it, she whispered. He stayed quiet. I thought I could, but it's too much now. What if I mess up? What if they laugh again? What if they don't clap at all? Her fingers twisted the paper tighter and tighter. I don't want to disappoint you, she said, voice cracking. Eli turned to her. Emma, you couldn't disappoint me if you tried. She shook her head. But they'll all be watching. He reached into his coat pocket, pulled out a folded envelope. Her eyes widened. Is that he nodded? I wrote it for your mom a long time ago, but maybe it's really for you. She took it slowly, as if it were made of glass. Read it, he said. If you're scared tomorrow, Read it right before you walk on that stage." Her hands trembled slightly as she placed it in her backpack. He stood to leave. "You don't have to be perfect," he said. "You just have to be brave." She didn't say anything, but when he turned out the light, she sat there in the dark, holding the envelope close to her chest like a lifeline, and somehow it made the night feel a little less cold. Backstage was too quiet. The buzz of the crowd beyond the curtain didn't reach Emma's ears. Not fully. Everything felt muffled, like she was underwater. Her fingers trembled around the zipper of her backpack. She reached in, pulled out the envelope. It felt heavier than before. She sat on a folding chair beneath a humming stage light, the noise of performers, parents, and teachers echoing from behind the curtain. Her name wasn't even on the program, just with Dad. That made it worse somehow. She opened the letter slowly. The paper crinkled like breath. "Lena," it began. But as she read, the voice in her head wasn't just her father's. It was a story of tired mornings and tangled ponytails, of missed lunches and guilt that never washed off, of lullabies played to empty rooms, hoping someone, anyone, would hear. "I'm not always good at saying the right thing. I mess up a lot. But every time I look at her, I see you, and I try harder. I hope that's enough." Emma's breath caught. "She doesn't know yet that the world will look at her differently because of me, but I hope one day she'll understand. It wasn't about being perfect. It was about showing up, again and again." For her, by the end, her cheeks were wet, but her hands were still. She folded the letter back into its creases and tucked it into her jacket pocket. A deep breath, the stage manager whispered, "You're on, after this act." Emma nodded when she stood. She wasn't shaking. Her dad looked up from the piano bench near the wings. She walked toward him, no fear, just love, and the music waiting to be born. The auditorium buzzed with polite anticipation. Rows of parents clutched playbills, murmuring about costumes, rehearsals, and who might take home the plastic trophy at the end. The walls were decorated with student posters and glittering cutout stars. A banner stretched across the stage. "Find Your Light, Talent Night 2025. Principal Haley stepped up to the mic. "Welcome, families and friends. Tonight, our students will remind us what it means to be bold, to share, and to shine applause. First up, a tap dancer, sequins, nervous energy, and a soundtrack to Beats Too Fast." The crowd clapped enthusiastically. Then, a magician. His rabbit refused to come out of the hat, prompting laughter from both children and adults. Emma stood just off stage behind the curtain. Eli sat at the edge of the wings, fingers hovering near the keys, his chest rising with each act. She peeked out once, saw PTA moms in the front row, saw the golden SUV dad leaning back in his seat, arms crossed. Board Dot saw a few kids from class whispering. The next act finished, a violin solo with too much vibrato and not enough heart. The MC walked back up, shuffling cards. "And now," he said, pausing, unsure how to read it, "a special performance listed only as with Dad." Whispers flickered through the audience. Eli looked up. Mo turned to him. He nodded once. She stepped forward into the stage light. The piano bench creaked as he sat beside her. No name was announced, no introduction. Was needed because some things don't require explanation, just presence, and the courage to begin. The room hushed as the first note rang out. It wasn't loud, it wasn't perfect, but it was true. Eli's fingers moved across the keys with a quiet confidence, the melody unfolding like a memory slowly remembered. It was the lullaby Lena used to hum in the kitchen while packing Emma's lunch, back when love filled the house more than silence. Emma stood center stage, hands clasped, eyes closed then. She began. Her voice was small at first, soft as breath, but it grew. With each word, her courage climbed. The lyrics didn't need to be polished. They didn't ask for praise. They asked to be felt. "Sleep now, darling. Morning's far. Mommy's near, no matter where you are." The auditorium held its breath. No one whispered. No one giggled. Even the PTA moms, mid-sip of their lattes, froze eyes fixed on the little girl who wasn't wearing sparkles or dancing on beat, but who sang like someone twice her size. Emma glanced at her dad once. Mid-verse, he nodded, barely, eyes locked on the keys, but the corners of his mouth trembled with something between awe and pride. The final notes stretched, lingering in the auditorium like a prayer. "Close your eyes, don't be afraid. You are the music Mommy made." Her voice quivered, not from nerves, but meaning. When the last word fell into silence, she lowered the mic slowly. No bow, no big gesture, just a girl who gave the stage something real, and a father beside her who gave her the key to it. The auditorium didn't move, didn't breathe, and in that stillness, the music echoed longer than sound ever could. The silence after the song felt heavier than any applause. Emma lowered her hands to her sides, blinking into the lights. Eli's fingers lingered on the final chord, letting it fade completely before releasing the keys. Then, gently, he stood. He didn't step forward, didn't wave. He turned to Emma and waited. She took a breath that sounded like a lifetime, then stepped back to the microphone. "My name's Emma Carson," she said quietly, voice barely carrying past the front row. "And that was a song my mom used to sing to me before she passed away." A few murmurs rippled through the room, quiet, respectful. "I didn't think I could sing it alone," she continued, glancing sideways at her father, "but I realized I never was." She turned to him, then back to the crowd. "That's my dad," she said simply, voice steadier now. "He's the reason I still remember how it goes." There was a pause, not dramatic, but real. Raw Dot, a man in the third row, leaned toward his wife. "That's her dad," he whispered. "The mechanic guy." Someone else murmured, "The one from the video." The golden SUV dad didn't speak at all. Eli stepped forward only slightly, placing one hand gently on Emma's shoulder. He didn't say a word. Didn't need to. His presence said everything. There was no spotlight on him, but in that moment, every eye in the room saw him, not for what he did, but for who he was. A father, a protector, a man who refused to disappear. It started with a single clap. Sharp. Certain Dot from the back of the room, a teacher, standing tall, her eyes glassy, then another and another, until the auditorium erupted into applause, not polite, not performative. Ernst and Eli stood still beside Emma, not quite believing it. For a moment, it was just sound, rising, swelling, washing over them like light. Emma's face broke into a smile she hadn't worn in months, not a small one. A full, unguarded, "I belong here" smile. From the front row, the PTA moms clapped too awkwardly at first, then genuinely. Their smug expressions softened, replaced by something close to respect, or maybe regret. Even the golden SUV dad leaned forward, hands clapping, slow but steady. His brow furrowed like he was reconsidering something that once felt so certain. Eli looked down at Emma Dot. She looked up at him. Neither said a word. The MC, stunned, stepped forward. "Let's hear it one more time for our surprise performers, Emma Carson and her dad." More applause. Eli gently guided Emma off the stage, his hand on her back. As they stepped into the wings, Principal Haley waited. Dot in her hand, the letter. She offered it without a word. Eli stared at it, confused, but she nodded toward the stage. Her meaning was clear. He took the envelope slowly, his fingers trembling now, not from fear, but from knowing. What was coming? Something was about to be said, not by him, but about him. He looked once more at Emma. She smiled, and for the first time, the spotlight didn't feel like it was burning him. It felt like it finally saw him. The auditorium was still buzzing when Principal Haley returned to the stage. She stepped to the microphone, cleared her throat gently, and held up a single piece of folded paper. "Before we close tonight," she began, her voice calm but resonant, "I'd like to share something that came to me unexpectedly. A letter that was never meant to be read out loud, but perhaps needs to be." She glanced off stage. Eli stood in the wings, frozen, unsure if he should step forward, but she shook her head slightly. "No, just listen." She unfolded the letter, her voice softened. "Lena, I don't know how to do this without you. Every day, I try to be both of us, the comfort and the courage, the structure and the softness. I make mistakes. God, I make so many mistakes." The crowd was silent, not even a cough. "I don't always know what she needs, but I never stop trying, because when I look at her, I see your eyes. I see your strength, and I remember that love doesn't need to be perfect to be real." People were leaning forward now, parents, students, even the teachers. "I hope one day she knows I showed up, that I stayed, that I tried, even when I didn't know how, that I loved her in every note, every braid, every late lunch, every quiet ride home. Haley paused, then looked up. And I hope you know that too. She folded the letter with care, her hands trembling slightly. No one clapped, not yet, but a few wiped their eyes. And somewhere in the middle row, a rich father stared at the floor like maybe he was seeing it for the first time. The crowd filtered out slowly, not with the usual post-show chatter, but with quiet steps and thoughtful eyes. Eli stood near the exit, Emma by his side, both still holding the weight of what had just been said aloud. Then came a voice behind him. "Hey, Carson, right?" Eli turned. It was him. Golden SUV dad, sunglasses now tucked into the collar of his sweater, laser, still perfect, but his expression was different, like the wind had knocked something out of him. He started shifting awkwardly. "Didn't expect that." Eli said nothing. "Just waited. I've got a daughter too. Younger than yours," the man continued. "She's in kindergarten. I thought I was doing enough, just being around, buying things, keeping things smooth." He rubbed the back of his neck, eyes flicking down. "I laughed once," he admitted, "at one of those meetings, when someone made a joke about your truck." Eli raised an eyebrow. "Just once." A beat passed. Then the man cracked a small smile. "'Kay, twice." Eli didn't smile back, but he didn't turn away either. "I just wanted to say," the man continued, voice lowering, "you're the kind of dad I hope I turn out to be." That landed. Eli looked at him, not with resentment, not with warmth either, just truth. "I show up," he said. The man nodded slowly. "Yeah, I see that now." Emma tugged at Eli's sleeve. "Can we go?" He nodded, placing a hand on her back as they turned to leave. "See you Monday," Eli said over his shoulder. The man blinked, then smiled. "Yeah, see you Monday." Monday came with the smell of burnt coffee and printer ink. Eli stood outside the front office, his boots dusted with morning gravel, waiting for Emma to finish morning announcements. A few parents walked by, some nodded, others offered gentle smiles. Different now, the same meeting room where he once sat in the corner. Now held a new kind of principal. Haley stood at the front, clipboard in hand. The PTA meeting had just started. Familiar faces around the table, but now, they waited when she spoke. They listened. "I want to thank everyone again for helping with talent night," she said, "and for recognizing that community starts with how we treat each other, not just how we perform in front of one another." A few quiet nods. Someone cleared their throat. Haley looked around. "Have a few changes moving forward." Pause. "I'll be stepping down as chair of the fundraising committee temporarily and passing that role to someone I think embodies what we're supposed to represent." She looked at Eli. "Mr. Carson," she said. "Eli, would you consider co-chairing the next fundraiser with me?" Silence. All eyes turned. Eli blinked. "I don't wear ties." A few chuckles. Haley smiled. "Neither do I on Fridays." He nodded slowly. "I'm not fancy, but I'll show up. That's all we ask," she replied. The vote was unanimous. Emma waited for him outside. Sitting on the school bench, backpack at her feet, he sat beside her, rubbing his hands together against the cold. "I think I just joined the PTA," he muttered. Emma gasped. "You're brave?" he laughed. And for once, the school didn't feel like a battlefield. It felt like a place. He belonged. The hallway didn't look different. Same tile floors, same buzzing lights, same faded murals drawn by kids long gone. But Emma walked through it differently now, shoulders straight, eyes forward. Kids looked up as she passed, not with the same tilted heads or whispered jokes. Some just nodded. One girl gave her a quiet thumbs up before looking away. She turned the corner toward her locker and paused. Two boys who used to snicker when her dad dropped her off were standing there. One of them looked at her. Really looked at her. "Hey," he muttered, almost too low to hear. "That song? That was good." She blinked. "Thanks." He opened his locker and didn't say anything else. She smiled. Just a little Eli stood at the other end of the hallway, waiting to drop off a box of donated books. He watched her from a distance, didn't call out, didn't interrupt, just watched. Emma spotted him. And this time, she didn't look away. She waved Big Dot on purpose. He raised his hand in return, unsure, still surprised, from behind him. A teacher passed and whispered, "Your daughter's got guts." Eli chuckled. She didn't get that from me, but maybe she did. He turned back just in time to see Emma laughing with a girl near her locker, replaced with something new. Light.ease. And the smile she gave him before the bell rang, it wasn't just happy, it was proud. The sun hadn't fully risen yet, but the kitchen already felt warm, not from the heater, or the toaster that hummed beside the counter, but from the quiet. Eli moved through the morning with calm hands. He flipped a pancake, poured juice, and packed Emma's lunch with the kind of rhythm that didn't feel rushed anymore. The panic that used to live in these hours had softened. Emma sat at the table, hair still damp from the shower, scribbling on a napkin. "What are you drawing now?" he asked. She held it up, a little cartoon of him at the piano, his hoodie way too big, a cape made from music notes fluttering behind him. He smiled. "I look taller in your cartoons," she smirked. Artistic liberty. He slid the pancake onto her plate and sat across from her. They ate without words for a moment, just the sound of syrup drizzling and quiet chewing. "I like mornings." "Now," she said suddenly. He looked up. "Yeah, they used to feel heavy. Like, we were late before we even woke up." He nodded. He knew exactly what she meant. "But now they feel like hours." He reached over and tapped her drawing. "You keep this one." She nodded. "It's going in my binder. Just in case someone forgets who my dad is," he chuckled. "Think they'll forget? Not anymore." She grabbed her backpack. "I want to go early today. Maybe help set up the library." He stood, grabbed his keys, and followed her to the door. And for the first time in what felt like years, there was no rush, no panic. Just a quiet morning and the peace of having finally stepped into their own rhythm. The cemetery sat just beyond the old church, where the trees rustled like whispers and the air always seemed a little too still. Eli and Emma stood side by side, bundled in jackets, hands full in Emma's arms, a bundle of fresh flowers tied with ribbon, in Eli's, a drawing the same one Emma had made after the performance, 2 stick figures beside a piano, a tiny heart above them. At the top, she would have loved this. They stopped at the familiar headstone. Lena Carson, beloved wife and mother, 1988. 2020, she sang, even in silence. Emma knelt first, placing the flowers gently at the base. "I sang for you," she whispered. Eli crouched beside her and laid the drawing down next to the bouquet. The wind tugged at the paper, but he pressed a small rock on the corner to keep it in place. "She heard it," he said softly. Emma looked up at him. "You think so?" He nodded. "Yeah, I think she's been hearing it all along." They stood in silence, no rush to leave, no need to speak. Then, Emma reached into her coat pocket and pulled out a folded piece of paper, his letter. She stared at it for a moment, then handed it to him. "You should read it," she said, to her, just once. Eli's hand trembled as he took it. He didn't read it aloud, but he held it tight, pressed it against the stone, closed his eyes, and let it go. Emma had taken his hand. And together, they stood in the stillness, not broken, not whole, but something stronger, something rebuilt. The school hallway was unusually quiet after the final bell. Lockers stood open. Backpacks swung lazily over shoulders, and the scent of dry erase markers clung to the air. Most kids had already gone home, but a few lingered helping teachers, straightening chairs. Avoiding the cold outside, Emma walked slowly past the office, her eyes catching on something new on the wall across from the library. A black frame, glossy, clean, centered beneath a soft light. Inside it, her father's letter, typed now. Centered on ivory paper, every word preserved exactly. Beneath it, in small serif print, submitted by Emma Carson, read by Principal Haley, remembered by everyone. She stopped and stared. One of the teachers passed behind her and smiled. "Powerful, isn't it?" she said. Emma nodded, lips parted. "He didn't know it was going up," the teacher added. She didn't ask for permission. She said it didn't need any. Emma stepped closer, read the first few lines again. "I make mistakes. God, I make so many mistakes, but I never stop trying." She reached out and brushed her fingers against the glass, not to touch it, but to feel the truth of it again. Behind her, a boy from her class slowed as he walked past. "That's your dad's letter, right?" he asked. She looked back and nodded. He gave a quiet, respectful smile. "Cool," then walked on. Emma lingered just a second longer, then turned toward the exit, her hand grazing the frame one last time. She didn't need to carry the letter anymore. The whole school was holding it now. The gymnasium had never looked like this. String lights looped across the ceiling beams. Folding tables were covered in mismatched tablecloths and homemade centerpieces. Tiny jars filled with crayons, miniature sheet music, and glittered stars. Laughter echoed under the high roof. It didn't feel like a school event, it felt like a celebration. Eli stood by the welcome table, wearing a button-down shirt Emma had ironed herself. He shifted nervously, clipboard in hand, watching parents walk in, not just wealthy ones, but working-class families, 2 neighbors, teachers, kids pulling their parents by the hand toward the bake sale. Principal Haley stepped up beside him. "You nervous?" he exhaled. "I've never hosted a fundraiser before." She smiled. "You've done something harder. You changed a room just by standing in it." He looked around. Emma was helping behind the cupcake table, showing a younger girl how to work the donation jar. She caught his eye and waved, not shyly this time. Bold, bright, from the other end of the gym. The golden SUV, Dad approached. "A check in hand, thought I'd match what you raised tonight," he said. "In your honor." Eli blinked. "Why?" "Because you raised the bar." 2. They shook hands. Just past the stage, a local jazz trio tuned up. Prepping for the night's music, Eli walked toward Emma, took off his jacket, and rolled up his sleeves. "Time to work?" she asked. He nodded. "Time to build something. Together." And as the lights dimmed and the first note played, the fundraiser began not with a speech or applause, but with a quiet kind of joy that had taken months to earn. The plaque was simple: Lena's room, where music remembers. Emma traced the letters with her finger as the small crowd gathered behind her. The music room smelled of polished wood and fresh paint, like something sacred had just been reborn. Eli stood by the new piano, a gleaming upright gifted by the community, not through a grant, not through a donor's name carved into a wall, through belief, through belonging. Principal Haley stepped to the front. "This school has seen talent," she said. "It's seen trophies, test scores, performances, but what it witnessed last week was heart, and now it has a home." She gestured to the piano. This instrument was chosen by Emma Carson, funded by students, teachers, and families, all of whom were moved, not by perfection, but by presence, by a daughter's voice and a father's hands. People clapped gently, not loud, but deeply. Eli stepped forward, brushing his fingers across the new keys. They felt warm already. Emma joined him. She sat beside him on the bench. Didn't ask, didn't wait. He played the first chord of the lullaby. She sang just one line. It was enough, because the room wasn't built for performance. It was built for memory, for healing. And in that moment, even without a stage, even without an audience, Lena was there, not in photo frames, not in letters, in the notes, in the way. Father and daughter moved together in the room now named after the woman who gave them both their music. The morning air was crisp, cooler than the last. Sunlight filtered through the neighborhood trees as Eli adjusted the strap on Emma's backpack and handed her a banana. She wouldn't eat, but always took anyway. "Shoelace," he said. Emma bent down and tied it, rolling her eyes playfully. "You know I'm not 5 anymore, right?" "Right?" he said, brushing a strand of hair behind her ear. "Just still mine." She smiled and stood tall. The walk to school felt shorter this year. They passed the same houses, the same mailbox with the broken flag, the same barking dog, but the weight was gone. No one stared from behind steering wheels. No one whispered when they approached the gate at the entrance. A familiar dad, the SUV one, held the door open. "Morning, Eli," he said with a respectful nod. "Morning," Eli replied. Surprised but steady, Emma walked in first, waving at 3 kids before even reaching the front steps. One of them handed her a folded piece of notebook paper. She looked back at her father. "I'll see you later," she said, then added, almost casually, "Don't be late for the music club." He grinned. "Wouldn't dream of it." She turned the corner, gone in a swirl of New Year energy. Eli paused at the top of the stairs, looking out across the campus, not as an outsider, but as part of it. The bell rang. He didn't flinch, and just as he turned to leave, he heard her voice from somewhere down the hall. Light, full, and unmistakable. You were never just a dad. He stopped, let the words settle in his chest, then walked on. Lighter than ever before, the music room buzzed with after-school chatter. Backpacks lined the walls. A few kids tapped keys on the piano while others strummed out-of-tune guitars, trying to match chords from memory. The new sign over the doorway, Lena's room, hung quietly above it all. Eli sat at the side piano bench, flipping through old sheet music while Emma organized markers by color. A boy approached shyly, maybe fourth grade, tugging at his hoodie string. He asked. Eli looked up. "Can you play the song again?" Eli blinked. "Which one?" "The one your daughter sang, the one that made everyone cry." The boy added with the kind of honesty only kids could say without flinching. Emma looked up too, eyebrows raised. Eli glanced at her. She shrugged. "You heard the man." A few more kids gathered. Eli turned toward the piano and ran his fingers across the keys. The wood was still new, but the music, it came like muscle memory. Smooth, gentle, the first notes drifted into the room. Slower this time, warmer. One of the girls hummed along. Another closed her eyes. Eli didn't sing. He didn't need to. By the second verse, Emma joined in from the back of the room. Voice soft but clear. The others followed, off-pitch, out of time, but full of heart. When it ended, there was no clapping, just stillness. One boy whispered, "That's my favorite now." Eli turned to the group. "Next week, you all bring one song that means something to you. It doesn't matter what it is. If it's yours, it's welcome here." The room nodded in silent agreement. And just like that, a new tradition began. The living room light was soft that evening, the kind of light that made shadows gentle, not haunting. Eli sat in front of the upright piano, hoodie sleeves pushed up, his phone propped against a stack of books. Emma stood behind the camera, arms crossed, half grinning. "You sure about this?" she asked. He nodded. "Figured it's time." She hit record. He didn't speak right away, just looked into the camera like it was someone he knew. "Hey," he began, "this probably isn't for everyone. But maybe it's for the dads who pack lunches before dawn and braid hair even though their hands shake. Maybe it's for the ones who stay quiet in the back row and wonder if showing up is ever enough." His voice never wavered, but it never pretended either. "I don't have all the answers. I mess up more than I admit, but I play, and I stay, and I love," loud enough to echo in the quiet. He turned to the piano, played the lullaby, just the intro, then looked back at the lens. "If you're a dad like me, you're not invisible. I see you." He stopped the recording. Emma leaned in, watching the playback over his shoulder. "You gonna post it?" she asked. He shrugged. "Might as well." Later that night, the video went up with no hashtags, no filter, just the caption, "For the ones who stay." By morning, it had a few hundred views, then a few thousand. One comment stood out. "I didn't know I needed this." Until I did. Eli didn't reply. He just watched. And for the first time, let himself be seen. The first day of school looked different this time. The parking lot was full. The energy high, but there was no tightness in Eli's chest. No second-guessing his clothes or whether his boots tracked in too much dust. He stepped out of the truck and helped Emma grab her things. She wore a denim jacket now, her mom's. Sleeves rolled in a confidence that didn't need fixing. Across the lot, the golden SUV pulled in. Same gleam, same clean shine. But this time, the man inside got out and walked toward Eli first. "Hey," he said. Eli turned. "Morning." The man held the school gate open. "After you." Eli nodded. No sarcasm. No glares. Just mutual ground. Emma and Eli walked through together, passing groups of kids and parents who no longer stared, no longer whispered. Instead, they waved. A few clapped him on the shoulder. Others smiled in that quiet, knowing way, like they'd seen something in him and hadn't forgotten it. Near the front steps, a group of younger students sat waiting for the bell. One of them whispered, "That's the piano, Dad." Another chimed in, "He's cool." Eli didn't hear it, but Emma did. She turned, walking backward for a few steps, grinning at her dad. "You going to be late for music club, Mr. Carson?" He raised a brow. "Wouldn't dream of it." They reached the doors. She leaned in and hugged him. Quick, tight, teenage-approved. Then she disappeared inside. Eli stood there a moment, watching her blend into the crowd. Not vanish from it, he turned back toward the lot, wind brushing his collar, and for the first time, this place felt like home. Late that night, after the house had gone still and Emma had fallen asleep with a book across her chest, Eli sat at the kitchen table again, the same spot where the first letter had lived. There was no coffee mug, no trembling hands, just a blank sheet of paper. He stared at it for a moment, then wrote, "To future me. If you're reading this, she's probably about to graduate. Maybe she already has. Maybe she's standing in a cap and gown. And you're crying like a fool behind the camera. I hope you remember this moment, this exact one, not because it's grand, but because it's quiet, and you earned that quiet. You made lunches with peanut butter, even when she begged for new. You walked her into that school 100 times, even when they looked through you. You played piano in rooms where no one clapped until they did. You didn't run. You didn't raise your voice. You raised her. So when you stand in that crowd one day, remember, you were never small. You were never invisible. You were the music behind her voice, and she was always listening. Love." Eli asterisk, he folded the letter carefully, slid it into an envelope, and wrote on the front in blocky letters, "Do not open until graduation," then placed it in the back of the kitchen drawer beside old batteries and menus they never used. Not for today, but for a day that would come, and when it did, he'd be ready. The new piano gleamed under the soft glow of the library skylight. Untouched since its dedication, until today, Eli sat at the bench, sleeves rolled, calloused fingers hovering over keys that still smelled faintly of varnish. Emma stood across from him, arms folded, smirking. "Ready?" she asked. "You sure the school's ready?" She laughed. "Let's go viral, ... On purpose this time, he chuckled, then cracked his knuckles dramatically. She pulled out her phone and angled it carefully, capturing both of them in the frame, her standing, him seated, the sign Lena's room just visible behind them. "I'm not singing unless you play like you mean it," she teased. He nodded once. "You sing, I'll fly." And just like that, they began, not the lullaby this time, something new, something they wrote together. One rainy Sunday, about messy mornings, quiet heroes, and the sound of love without needing to say it out loud. Emma's voice carried the first verse, soft and confident. Eli followed, his chords wrapping around her words like a harmony meant to be there all along. A few students peeked in from the hallway. Then a teacher. Then more. No one interrupted. They just listened. When the final note landed, Emma looked down at the screen. One take, perfect, perfect. She clicked post. The caption read, "This time, we're not hiding." Hashtag with Dad. As the views began ticking up, Eli stood, stretching with a quiet groan. "That's it," he said. "One more note?" Emma smiled, looping her arm through his. "Until the next one." And together, they walked out of Lena's room, not as performers, but as proof. The gymnasium echoed with the soft murmur of parents, teachers, and students. Folding chairs lined the floor, and a banner read, "End of Year Honors Assembly." Eli sat in the back row, just another parent. No fanfare. No spotlight. He wore the same pressed shirt Emma had ironed for him that morning. Joking, he looked like a respectable adult. On-stage students were applauded as they crossed to accept awards. Spelling bees, science fairs, sports. Eli clapped for all of them. Then the microphone, SQUEALED. The principal stepped forward. "We'd like to end today's ceremony with a letter," she said. A student submitted this anonymously, but we knew who it was. Laughter rippled through the crowd. She unfolded a piece of paper and began to read. "To my father, ... Eli froze. "You think I didn't notice? But I did. The way you held my backpack strapped tighter when I was nervous. The way you walked beside me, even when no one saw you as more than a janitor. You were my first stage. My first clapping audience. My first yes," murmurs spread. "People used to look through you, but I never did." "I looked up," gasps a few tears. The principal looked up. In honor of Emma Lane, she said, "We're naming our new music room the Eli Lane Studio." Eli's mouth fell open. Emma stood beside the stage now, recording his stunned face, her own eyes wet. "Say something," she mouthed, but he couldn't. Not yet. The applause rose. Thunderous and honest, not for a janitor, not even for a father, but for a man who showed a girl how to be heard. And now the world was listening.